and share my screen. And hopefully I can find everything I need to find. Of course not. All right. Because when I don't share my screen, there we go. Okay. So let's present. So up until this point, we have been, oh boy, we have been talking about different types of frogs, and they have different adaptations that make them different. We've been really more looking at them as with this poetry and with a pourquoi. We haven't really been looking at the scientific part of these adaptations. That's going to come in Unit 2. And we are halfway through our Unit 1. So this particular unit has to do with really just focusing on the ideas of narratives and how we use narratives to engage the audience, and different parts of a narrative that as a reader, we probably, we would appreciate, but we don't necessarily like think about when we're reading a story. But when you're writing a story, you are definitely going to need to make sure that you have all of the parts that are important to writing a narrative. And so that's what we've been working up to at this point. And so today, your assessment, this is the mid-unit assessment. Today, you have an opportunity to show me, and this is Aubin, and Mrs. Creel and Mrs. Woodland, because Mrs. Creel and Mrs. Woodland are actually really excited about this unit, and they are going to be grading your assessment today. So you are going to want to do a super great job to show them how much you've learned in this unit so far. So here are our learning targets. I can refer explicitly to the text when answering questions about the text. So today you're going to read two different texts. You're going to read a poem and you're going to read a pourquoi. Now let's remember what explicitly means. Remember, explicitly means to be able to show with detail. So that means we've been doing in class, when you have, when we've been doing so far, is that when you have that text in front of you, you can put your finger on the answer. So when we say refer explicitly, that means you go back to the text and you say, right here, it shows, and then whatever the answer is. Okay, so when we say refer explicitly, it means that you can go back to the text and either use the text exactly how it's written to give you your answer, or you can paraphrase that idea, but you know exactly from the story that's where the answer is. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about that when I go over some of the questions, how you go back and refer explicitly to the text. And the texts aren't going to be on paper for us today. They are going to be on the screen. So when I say you're going to be able to point that, you're going to have to point to them at the screen, because you're going to have to be able to go right there. That's where it is. It won't be on paper for today. Our second learning target is I can find the meaning of unfamiliar vocabulary. So today you're going to look at some vocabulary and you're going to go through all of the things we normally do when we do a close read. And I have a reminder of what that looks like. When you have a close read, when you look at something closely, you use all of those keys and all those ways to figure out what that vocabulary means. And sometimes that vocabulary can be different than what we're used to when we see a word. And I want to kind of remind you back at the very back in the beginning of the school year, we had the word damp in one of our readings. And all of you went, damp, oh, that means that something's wet. And the sentence even said, the rain can't dampen my spirits. And a lot of you thought, oh, damp means wet and it's rain. The answer's got to be wet. But if you really think about that sentence, the rain can't dampen my spirits. Well, my spirits, well, those are inside me. That's my feelings. So can they really get wet? Well, no, they can't really get wet. So today you're going to have to look at the vocabulary and think about, what does this particular vocabulary in this case mean? Not what I think it means. I'm going to go back to the text and make sure, what does it mean in this case? What does it mean right now in this text? Okay, so here are our reminders of what we do when we are a close reader. All right, So we read the small chunks of text slowly and think about it. So today when you are reading the poem, you're going to read the poem just like we did when we were a group. We took a section at a time and thought a line at a time inside the stanza and thought about what does that mean? What is it the author really trying to say here? And you think about, and as the pourquoi, we came up with the gist for every paragraph. So we stop and think about it because we're reading it carefully. Then if we get to any words that we don't know, then we have to stop and we have to think about them. And we have strategies to figure out those meanings. We can use the context. We read the sentence around the word. And that's what I'm talking about especially when we're looking for words in poems. They may not mean what we think they mean. In the pourquoi, they may not necessarily mean what we think they mean. We have to read that sentence just like the one with damp. It didn't mean wet like we normally would think. So we have to read around the sentence and make sure what that word means. We look at the affixes for clues. We look at, is there a prefix like re, means like again, right? Or does it have a suffix at the end that will tell us something more about what that word might mean? Then we look at the root word. If we can find, is there a root word in there? What does that root word normally mean? And how does that prefix or suffix change or help that word? And if we're really stuck, we use a dictionary. Today, you probably won't need any dictionaries for today. Go back to the text to find the answers to questions. Today, you have some questions, and I'm going to ask you to always go back to the text and explicitly find the answer to the question. And then we also have times where we write notes or we answer questions about the text. That's today, for sure. You're going to show me what great readers you guys are. And then normally we talk about the answers we find, but today we're going to be independent with our work. And so we won't be talking to others about our answers. Working to become effective learners. Now, guys, I know, especially those of you who are used to being in here and used to being, being able to ask us questions super easily and, read the paper on your desk versus on the computer. I get it. It can be hard, but we're going to persevere today. I am so confident. When we were talking to Mrs. Creel and Mrs. Woodland on Friday about this test, and because they are going to be doing the ones that are grading it, we talked about that, you guys have been working so hard and you guys can persevere. You're totally capable of doing this. All right. And sometimes you have to challenge yourself. Sometimes things are hard and you just have to say, I can do this, right? Even if it's difficult or demanding, you keep trying. All right. We are going to take this test in the Zoom today. So if you have a question, we can help you with that, okay? Now we can't answer the question for you, obviously, but if you have a question, we will be available for this time for Zoom. So what does persevering look like? It means keep trying, right? It means if something's really frustrating you, skip it and go back to it, okay? But you're continuing to work on it. You're not giving up. All right, and we talked about asking for help. What does it sound like? So in your mind, you're giving all those affirmations that Mrs. Aubin and I have possibly been helping you with. I know this is challenging, but I can keep moving forward. I can do this. I can do anything. All right. So today we're going to persevere, even though it might be a little hard for some of us. Okay. All right. So you're going to have two parts to this assessment. Okay. In part one, you're going to read a new frog poem. So it's like think about all the frog poems we've read. We've read a frog poem about the poison dart frogs. We did the pollywogs. We did the glass frog. We did the wood frog. You can do this, friends. We've been practicing already. We're going to answer some questions to show that we understand the poem, understand what the author is trying to have us understand. And remember, poems have figurative language. Sometimes the words mean things differently than at first they sound like. Remember when we talked about figurative language, when we talked about the butterflies in my stomach? There aren't really butterflies in my stomach. It's just a phrase that we use to understand that my stomach is giving me all these weird feelings like that and making me, because I'm nervous or I'm worried or excited. All right. So today you're going to read a new frog poem. And then you're going to answer some questions. Then the second part, you're going to read a new pourquoi. And so remember that a pourquoi is a story that explains why there is a natural phenomenon, why things are the way they are in the natural world. So you're going to answer questions about the story's plot and its purpose. Again, remember that the purpose of a pourquoi is to explain why. So when we read the story about why do frogs have long tongues, the purpose was to show why was to explain why frogs have long tongues. And when we read the next story, why do poison dart frogs, why are they colorful? The purpose was to explain why poison dart frogs are colorful. Not the scientific definitions of why those things are, but a creative story of why. So think about that when you're reading the new pourquoi tale, okay? And please, just like we always do, read the texts carefully, all right? There is no rushing necessary. You guys can slow down and read carefully. That helps you answer the questions when you've got them. All right, okay, seems like I'm missing a page I wanted to go over real quick, but maybe it's not in here anymore. Oh, because for some reason it disappears when I do it. Hold on, I remember now. It's right here. It disappears sometimes, and I'm not sure why. It says the slide is skipped when presenting, but it was just perfectly fine when I did it the other day. Strategies to answer selected response questions. So today, some of the questions you're going to answer have to do with there's 4 choices or 5 choices, and you're thinking about which one of those choices you are going to pick. First thing you have to do is make sure that you read the question carefully. Now, I know you're going to be like, I just read this whole thing. It's a lot of reading, Mrs. Harrison. Well, yes, I know. But it's better if you read the question carefully, because then that will help you answer more quickly and better. So then remember, once you read the question really carefully, cover up the answers and try to think of what the answer might be yourself. Okay? Think about, so if there was a question, is Mrs. Harrison's glasses are what color? And then you know that there are going to be some choices. You cover up the choices and you go, what color would I say that they were? Oh, I see her face all the time on Zoom, and I think they're kind of blue. And then you uncover the answers and read the answers and read all of the answers just to make sure and find the one that's most like yours. So if it said blue, maybe you said blue, but then one of the choices was blue and silver, and there was blue, red, blue and silver, and green. So you always go through all the answers, because actually I think they are blue and silver. And even though you read blue, in your head you said blue and you chose blue, and then I uncovered blue was one of the options, read all of the choices just to make sure. All right. And as you read through each answer, think back to the text, go back to the text and explicitly find that spot that shows you that your answer which one is the correct one and which one is the one you thought it was. Go back to the story and reread, or put your finger on that screen right where it is. Okay. And obviously you're not doing this test in paper, but normally you could cross out any of the answers that you know are incorrect. And when you're doing the Google form, you can think about, can't cross them out like you could on, like MAP or one of those other ones, but you can look at them and see which ones. Oh, I know it's not the last one, because that one doesn't make any sense. Okay, so those are your keys for today. Hopefully you were listening carefully to me, because those are some things that we're going to need to do. And then when you're all done today, inside your workbook, there is a page that just asks you to think about how you did. I realized, let me grab my book. Here it is. So in your workbook today, the only thing I'm going to ask is, when you're all done, if you could go and check off and think about how it's on page 23. And this is just something you can do on your own. Think about how you did on the test. What you think, the first one says, I can refer to the text to answer and ask questions. So you can pick how you feel like you're doing. This is something you do when you're finished. It's not something you have to turn in. It's not something, but I would love it if you have a chance to go back and just think about how you felt about the test. Okay. All right. So everybody, put your hands over your head. Reach to the sky. Everybody, I'm going to see, you're not doing it. Come on, everybody. We're ready. We're warming up. We're warming up for the test. Here it is. Okay, lean to the right. Lean to the left. All right, here we go. Take a deep breath. One more. Oh, Josh is doing good. All right, you guys are doing great. All right, roll your shoulders back. We're ready. All right, we're ready to do this. We can do this. All right. Okay, so I'm going to show you how, and I want everybody to do this with me. Okay, I want you, and some of you I can see are actually, some of you are in my document, so I know you might have been looking at my slides with me. I want you to go to, I'm still sharing my screen because I want you to go to today's assignment. And first we're going to look at the questions, okay? So nobody needs to open anything up, but I'm just giving you I'm showing you what we're going to do. All right, so then we go to third grade classroom under classwork. And I'm just going to show you, we're going to do this together in a minute, but I want to show you what you're going to see. Oh, wrong one. There it is. There it is. So then you're going to see EL mid-unit assessment for Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and open that, but today I'm just going to go over the questions and show you, it wanted me to do all of the work here. Okay, so let's look in here. So Mrs. Harrison has her Google Slides that she just went through. So if you need to go back and look, gosh, what were some of the strategies she gave me? They're right in there. The spring peepers. This is your story. Oh boy, where is the, that's weird. My Google form is not in there, but I know I put it in there. Okay, Mrs. Harrison's gonna have to go do that real quick, I guess. So why do frogs hop? Here is also, that is really weird. That's wigging me out a little bit because it was in there this morning. I must have touched something unmeaningful. Why do frogs hop? There is our pourquoi. So here's our spring peepers and here's our pourquoi. Mrs. Harrison is quickly, boy, that is definitely not what I wanted to happen today. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of all my little friends. Mrs. Aubin, while I'm quickly adding that, can you think of any other strategies that we need to think about while I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for just a minute. Can you think of any other strategies that we need to be thinking about while we're taking our test today?
If you are looking at the meaning of a word, like when you gave the example of dampen, I think sometimes what I like to do is when I look at my choices, I like to take that definition, go back to the text and put it in the sentence and see if it would make sense. And that's how I know sometimes if I have the right definition or the right answer. Also, don't worry about rushing. You've got plenty of time. I think sometimes I'm a taskmaster and I like to get things done. But because I do that, sometimes I make silly mistakes. And I don't want you guys to do that because this is kind of an important one. I mean, I can't believe Mrs. Woodland is going to grade them. I've never had her grade any of my students' work before like that. She's done some fluency assessments, but this is a big deal. So I'm anxious. I'm excited for her to see how much you guys have grown from the beginning of the year till now. I think too, don't self-doubt yourself. Sometimes we doubt ourselves and we think, oh, no, that's not right. And you go back and you change and you change. Once you have used your strategies, don't go back and change it again. Once you know, you feel good about it, move on. And don't get stuck on one. If you get stuck on one, you don't know the answer, move on and go back to it. That helps too, because then you get away from it. And then you can go back and think about it again more clearly. What strategy works good for you? What do you feel confident in? Would anybody want to share? Lila, what do you feel good about? What's a strategy you like to use?
So I like to look a little around it and see what those are. See if what I would usually say that means and see if it means something else that time.
So how many of you did that when you took the days test, where you looked around the word to find out what the context is and what would make sense? Because you had to pick 1 out of 3, right? I know I had to do that when I would take a test like that. Yep. Good strategy, Lila.
Excellent. All right, my friends, thank you for being patient. I don't know where it went because it was there before. So now you will see under your assignment that we had, I'm glad, I guess, that I waited for this so that nobody could peek at them, right? But we have, again, there's your 2. You're going to open those in a minute, but I want to just look at the questions. I don't want you to open quite yet the reading, because then if you're reading, you're not listening to what I'm saying. But look at the directions, read the poem, The Spring Peepers, and the Pourquoi, Why Do Frogs Hop, carefully. And then answer the questions below. Refer explicitly to the text when answering the questions. So Mrs. Harrison also put, if you, so that if you are having trouble getting back to where your story is, this, if you click on this, you get to the story, you get to the Spring Peepers, and if you click on this one, the second one, you get to the story, Why Do Frogs Hop? So I put it in 2 places. I put it in the assignment, and I also put it at the top of here. So this first question is super important. What is your name? Because when Mrs. Woodland and Mrs. Creel are grading your test today, they need to know who you are for it to count for the test. So make sure, and could you please put your first and last name? I mean, you don't have, for a lot of you, it doesn't matter necessarily, but like for our Joshes and our Lilas and so forth, you know, maybe a first and last name so that Mrs. Woodland can easily find you. All right, I'm going to read the questions, but we're not going to go over the answers. I need everybody to keep up because you haven't read things yet, so you don't give me any answers. But I'm just going to read through the questions and talk about when you're answering them, what should you do? So the first one says, part A, in this poem, what does "we steal your sleep" mean? And then there are 4 choices. Okay, this sounds like it might be some figurative language. So go back and reread and make sure you know what it means. Does it mean burglars come in at night? The frogs sing only at night? The frogs croak so loudly no one can sleep? Or the frogs sleep all night? So you're going to read the poem really carefully and then choose one. Which line from the poem supports your answer for that question? So go back explicitly to the text and find the lines that helped you figure out which one it meant. Okay? And it's "we sing to bring and make you stay awake too late. Beneath our chins, a thin balloon to help our song from March till June." Those are the lines that are going to help you solve that other question. Then it asks you to list 3 pair of rhyming words. We talked about rhyming words in the other poems. So it says 3 pairs. Who can tell me what a pair is? What does it mean when it says a pair? Who can tell me? Miss Astria, what does a pair mean?
They rhyme together.
So they rhyme, but how many words is that if we say a pair?
3.
Oh, well, actually 2. So 2 words is a pair, like a pair of mittens, pair of earrings, those kind of, so 2, but they want 3
Pair of
sets.
twins.
So 3 sets of them. So how many words are you going to have total listed there then? If we say 3 pairs of words that rhyme, then we're going to have a total of 6. Good job, Miss Lila. So 2 words that rhyme, 2 words that rhyme, 2 words that rhyme. It sounds like I'm teaching multiplication almost. 3 groups of 2. All right, so find some words in the poem that rhyme. 3 sets of 2. So a total of 6 words are going to be in your answer. All right, the next one says, according to the poem, how do spring peepers use the thin balloon beneath their chins? To hold water when they swim, to help them sleep, to sing, or to eat. So by going over these questions ahead of time, you kind of know what to look for when you're reading. So keep that in mind as well. All right, the next one says, choose the correct dictionary definition of the word score as it is used in the poem. So that doesn't mean look in the dictionary. That means these are from a dictionary and choose the right one for the word score. This might also be one of those times when it's not what you think it is, and go back to the text and look and see what does it mean in this in this case, okay? All right, the next one says, what is the problem in the story? Why do frogs hop? So when you get to this question, you know that now you need to read the story. You need to go back and click on the story, why do frogs hop? So you take a little break from your Google form, take a little break from and read the story. It says, what is the problem in the story? Choose the correct response. Now remember, when we talked about problems in the story, we said that there's a main problem and then there's sometimes a secondary problem. Pick the one that's the main problem, okay? The choices are frog is hungry and wants to catch a dragonfly. Frog needs to win a race against snake. Snake is hungry and needs to eat. It's a very hot day, so frog needs shade from a tree. Those are your options. Pick the main problem from the story. What details from the text best support your answer to part A? So go back to the story and look at these options and say, which one made me decide that last answer? Okay, one hot day before frogs could hop, frog took a walk to sit in the shade of a tree next to the pond. Snake thought frog looked tasty. This thought made frog's stomach rumble loudly. He was hoping to catch a delicious dragonfly for his lunch, so he sat very still. And the last one, race me across the pond, frog suggested, so you can eat me if you win. If I win, you let me go. All right, and then the next one says, how does the main character respond to the problem? Hey, this sounds exactly like one of our things that we've been really working on in the essential parts of a narrative. That's that arrow, right? How does the character respond to the problem? So go back to the story, reread where you need to reread and say, what does the character do about this problem? And then you need to say details from the text to explain what he thought, what he did, what he said, or what he felt. So you're going to go back to the text, refer explicitly to the text, and you're going to type on this line how the character responded to the problem. So this is going to be a couple of points, my friends, so make sure you answer it well. If there's something he thought about, write that in, how he felt, what he said, include as many details in there as you can, all right, for Mrs. Woodland and Mrs. Creel. All right, the next one says, how is the problem in the story solved or resolved? That's that sun, right? That sun part. Frog wins the race by swimming quicker than snake. Frog wins the race and eats frog. Frog wins the race by walking quickly around the pond. Frog wins the race by hopping across the leaves on the pond. You're going to pick one of those choices. Then the next one says, what is the purpose of this narrative? So that's one of the answers you're going to give. What is the purpose? Think about what is the purpose of a pourquoi. All right, because you're reading a pourquoi. Use the details from the text to explain your answer. This question is also worth more than 1 point because you have to go back to the story and explain what the purpose was, how the purpose was shown in the story. And the last two questions here say, the text says Snake was angry to have been beaten by a small frog. Frog hopped joyfully back across the leaves to return to the other side of the pond. What does return mean? Re means again or back. Choose the correct response. Does it mean to turn in a circle, to go back to the same place again, to move backward from one place to another, or to do the same thing again? You're going to go back to the story, or even right here, the sentence is right here, reread and think about what does return mean in this case, all right? And the last question, if you know what joy means, that joy means happiness, what do you think joyfully might mean? All right, think about what Mrs. Aubin might have taught you about what those word parts might have to do with that particular situation, okay? All right, so those are the questions. You guys all can manage this easily. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you, so what we're gonna do now, because I wanna make sure you have at least a half an hour to work on this test. All right, so what I want everybody to do is I want everybody to go either to the assignment here, or you can go right to the Google form like I was, and you're going to go to the story, and I want you to click on the story and open up the Spring Peepers poem. We're not going to read it so it should have, it didn't open a new one. Okay, I'm going to go back to the form. So I want to make sure that because the form definitely opens a new page for you. There we go. All right, so I want everybody to be able to see the spring peepers. And I want everybody to be able to see how frogs hop. And if you're having trouble with, it's going to take a minute to do that. I want everybody to work on that. I want you to have both of those open so you can do that and the questions. So give me a thumbs up when you have 3. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can see everybody. And Ms. Aubin can help me out when she sees people with questions. Yes, Jensen. We're going to open all 3 tabs.
I know, but how do we know which one is which on the questions?
So the first questions go to the poem, and the second set of questions go to the pourquoi, how frogs hop. And so it'll say that in the questions. It says now, in the pourquoi, and then the rest of those questions are for the pourquoi. Does that make sense, Jensen? No? Okay. So I'll go ahead and show you again. Everybody's opening those for me. Open, open, open. Okay. So right here, Jensen, if you look at the assessment, the first ones all have to do with the poem. And then it says, what is the problem in the story? Why do frogs hop? So all of these from then on have to do with the story. Okay. Does that help? Okay. All right. So Lila, you have all 3 of your windows open? Okay. So you're giving me a thumbs up when you have all 3 of your windows open. Cole, do you have all 3 of your windows open? Mr. Cole, are you working on getting all 3 of those windows open for me? Okay, good. Miss Isabella, how's it going? Okay. Max, you doing okay? Leo, looks good. Miss Haley Calendar, how's it going, sweet pea? Are you getting all 3 of them open? So you want 3 tabs. Well, you'll really have 4 because you'll have Mrs. Aubin and Mrs. Harrison on Zoom. So there's really 4.
Can you stop sharing so I can see everybody?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Miss Harrison?
Yes, Miss Haley.
Are they supposed to read to us or we read them?
You will actually, in a moment, when I'm going to put us into 2 breakout groups so that we have only half of us for Mrs. Aubin and half of us for Mrs. Harrison. And you're going to read to yourself. You're going to read the poem to yourself. And then you're going to answer the questions on the poem. Then you're going to read the story and answer the questions to the story. All right.
Which one is the
Okay.
Is anybody having troubles? Are we all doing okay? You all look busy, so that's good. Is there anybody who's having trouble getting all of their things open?
Which one is the poem?
The Spring Peepers. Doesn't it look like a poem?
No.
Yeah, the Spring Peepers, because it has those lines and like a poem does. And the story looks like a story.
Lennox has his thumb down.
Okay, Mr. Lennox, you want me to show you again how to get those open? Would that help, buddy? Mr. Lennox, I can't see your face, so can you show me? So you wanted me to show it again? Okay, so here we go. So if you're in today's assignment, buddy, did you get to today's assignment? Uh-oh, I lost him. I want to make sure I can see him when I do the, of course, he's not anywhere where I can find him.
I can find him, but I only see the top of his head in the ceiling.
Okay. So buddy, can you angle it better so that we can, there you go, Mr. Lennox. There you go. Okay. Did you get to this page here? The one I'm sharing with. Did you see where your assignment is? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
So then you click on the Google form and it gives you this cute little frog at the top. Okay, do that for me. Okay, so that's the questions you're going to answer. Okay. And then if you click, are you ready? If you click on this top link, it's going to open another thing that says the Spring Peepers. So this is our poem that we're going to answer the questions to. Lennox, will you give me a thumbs up when you got that one open? Lennox, did you click on that first one?
I think he's still working.
All right.
I just see the top of his head.
Okay. So if you're there, how about this? So I'll still continue to work with Lennox. If you're ready, you need to stay on Zoom. Mrs. Aubin and I are going to stay on Zoom to answer questions. Okay. So stay on Zoom, but you can turn off your sound. You can turn down your sound so that you're not listening to us unless you need to ask a question. All right. So if you're ready to start your test, go ahead. You can turn down the sound, but stay until you're finished.
But don't they have to join their breakout room?
Yes. Sorry. Yep, you're right. I'm going to see. I wonder how I can make, so Mrs. Aubin, if Lennox ends up in your breakout room, can you help him with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Ma'am.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to put you in a breakout room just so there's not so many people asking questions. Okay. So I'm going to create the room, make sure that Mrs. Aubin is in one and I'm in another. Okay, well, we'll see. It doesn't have me in either. Oh, because I need to be in two. So Mrs. Aubin, you'll be in one and I'll be in two. All right. So guys, good luck. You got this. You've got this. Do your best job. All right. Show Mrs. Woodland your power moves. Okay. Your power reading. All right. Go ahead and join that room and I'll see you guys later. Do your best job. All right. Did I end up with Lennox? No. Hey, Miss Abby, I know you're not feeling well. Just try your best, sweetie. All right? Do your best job for Mrs. Woodland and me, okay? All right. I know. Yes, Jensen.
Can I mute my sound?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go get Lennox. I'll be right back. Hey, Lennox. And how's it going, buddy? Hey, Finn. I'm gonna assign you to a breakout room for some help, okay? So if you need any help, I'm sending you to Mrs. Aubin. All right. Yes, Miss Abby. What can I do for you, sweet pea?
Which one is part A? Which is
The
part A?
Spring Peepers is the poem.
Part A.
Right. You have two. The part A that's at the top is for the Spring Peepers. The part A at the bottom says for the story. There are two part A's.
Okay, so the part A at the top is Spring Peepers, and the part A after it is Why Do Frogs Hop?
Yes, because it says in the story, why do frogs hop, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. Good question. Good clarifying question, my friend. All right, I'm leaving again to get my other friends. I'll be back if you guys need me. Just put your hand up and I'll come. Hey, Elena, can you hear me? Put your thumb up if you can hear me. No. Okay. Sunny, can you hear me? Okay. So, Miss Sunny, go back to the tab that has your, go back to the tab that's in the breakout room that has you join the breakout room and click on join breakout room for me, will you? And then can go back. They're perfect. All right. Lennox, buddy, are you still there? Lennox. Lennox.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I can't see your head anymore. Oh, there you are. Hi, buddy. Awesome. Hey, bud. Did you find where you need to be? Did you find the test and everything you needed?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Can you go back to the page that says that you join the breakout room? So that other tab, the Zoom tab, and then I'll meet you in the other room.
All right.
Thank you, buddy.